is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I've been focusing my attention on telling the stories of les filles du roi and les filles Marie, the king's daughters, and the marriageable girls. So we are getting to know these incredible women, and each time I do one, I'm amazed by what they went through, and it humbles me to know, wow, I have it pretty easy. So they are examples to us all of what the human spirit can endure. So without further ado, let's get to know one of our family of this episode. Before I let you go, make sure you subscribe, like, and notify. All of that helps the program continue to grow. So thank you to those of you who have done so. And also, if you want to participate a little bit further, we have what is known as YouTube memberships. And as a member, you get certain perks and that sort of thing. It starts at 99 cents and goes all the way to $24.99. So that is one way to help us. And then we also have a PayPal button on my Have Roots Will Travel website that you can use. And also, now they have the super thanks. It's like a tip. And you do it for individual episodes that you might like. So all of that is great. So thank you to those who have helped along the way. Without further ado, let's get to know our Père Marie of this episode. So today we're going to be looking at episode 137. The lady's name is Louise-Therese-Marie Lebrueil. This is the first time I've had a fille mariée or fille du roi with 3 names that I can recall. And this episode comes to us from a viewer request. I really didn't know this particular fille mariée very well at all. So it was a pleasure to get to know her. Let's turn the page. So let's find out more about Louise. She was born in 1636 in Sugeat, France. Her parents were Jean Lebrueil and Marie Lecomte. She comes to us from the region of Brittany, and inside of that, the département of Ille-et-Vilaine. Now, it is historically, Sugeat's roots stretch back to at least the 12th century, when it was home to a very wealthy priory linked to the Abbey of Marmouty near Tours. There's actually even earlier than the 12th century. It's literally a roche au diable, or the devil's rock, which you can still see today. Over time, the village developed around agriculture, religion, and its relationship with the surrounding marshes. Today, those same marshlands are protected as the Marais de Sugeat Nature Reserve. So those of you who are fascinated by that, you might want to, and if this is your heritage, this is something definitely to mark down. Let's step inside as well. The Église Saint-Jean-Baptiste that you see there, it's a modest yet meaningful slice of the spiritual landscape of this particular commune. It continues a legacy that was begun in the 11th century when they had a smaller church. Fast forward to 1836, the medieval church is replaced and culminated in a much grander and cross-shaped stone structure. And in the 1850s, the high point, that lantern tower, was designed. So even though you're not looking at the church that Louise would have been baptized in, it is in the same spot. So let's have a look at her journey. After she loses both parents, Louise-Therese-Marie would arrive in New France aboard the Saint-André, as so many others did, in 1659. And she was accompanied by not only Jeanne Mance, but also Marguerite Bourgeois. So the groom that she would select and who selected her is named Marin Degnaud de Destalis. He was born in 1620 in a place called Luchet, now Luchet-Prégé, in France. His parents, unfortunately, are unknown. Now, Luchet is found in the Pays de la Loire, and it's inside of the département de Sarthe. It lies approximately 33 kilometers south of Le Mans and about 11 kilometers from La Flèche. So it really is kind of almost a bedroom community. The modern commune was created around 1810 through the merger of 2 historic villages, Luchet and Prégé. So before 1810, it was Luchet. It is now found as Luchet-Prégé. And the name Luchet derives from the Gallo-Roman term called lupiasso, likely referring to a landowner named Lupius. The area has been inhabited since antiquity, with archaeological evidence pointing to Roman activity. The most notable church in Lucé is the Église Saint-Martin de Lucé, and it was originally constructed in the 11th century and features a choir built around 1225. I just can't believe these churches, you know. A major fire in 1921 destroyed parts of the church, but the western facade was rebuilt in the 20th century. So it kind of goes to show you, and that beautiful little picture I have there, it just gives you the quietness of that spot that Marie would have come from. So Marie would come as part of a very famous expedition, if you will, called La Grande Recrue de 1653, the Grand Recruitment of 1653. And what was happening at the time is Montreal was dying. There was probably 50 people left on the island of Montreal, and it was either going to go the way of many a colony or it was going to be rescued. And so at that time, we have the governor, Maisonneuve, who said, you know what, I'm going to go to France and try to recruit 100 settlers who will really come with the intent of building a life here. And so he did. And Marie was one of those 100 recruits, and his name is forever enshrined in one of the monuments and memorials to these very brave people. Because if you walk the streets of Montreal, you're walking along a street that because he was there among the group, they survived. So that is a really, really important part to understand. Now, once they were there, they were usually given land. They were usually given, an incentive. Many of them came to work as well, but many of them also came to settle, and he was one of them. So Marie was in the colony for 6 years, time enough to prepare and have the land and a house built, that sort of thing. And Louise shows up at the end of September. By the 24th of November, a little short of 2 months, they were married at Montreal. They would, of course, settle at Montreal first, and this wonderful city was once known as Ville-Marie, the town of Marie, by the founder of that settlement was Paul de Chomedey, Sœur de Maisonneuve, and was essentially a missionary center that was founded in May of 1642. And the colony, as I've mentioned, would not thrive. And so by 1653, that's when those 100 settlers would arrive, and that's where Marie was part of. Now, from this small group would emerge things like the Notre Dame congregation, which is that church that you see there. It didn't look like this, of course. And the bottom picture, you kind of see a simpler kind of church before it became really a basilica almost. And so the island of Montreal had so many things going against it at the beginning. Notably, it was a prime area for attack by the Indians. By the map as an island, but you can see how many places it could, because of the shape of it, how many times, like different locations where they could be attacked. And that was a big deal. Now, in 1663, they established a militia that would protect the inhabitants, and so many of those colonists would join the militia and also serve to protect the city. This picture on your upper right is actually a depiction of Ville-Marie as it would have existed in the 1640s. It's a depiction that I took from one of the museums. I've got the link for you as well if you want to explore that. And of course on the bottom is one of my favorite pictures of the skyline of Montreal. It really is. I was born about an hour from there, so of course it is my favorite city in the world. And let's have a look at another place that they would settle. Now, in search of land, of course, the settlers would begin to move away from the city of Montreal and would go out into just the surrounding areas. And one of those areas was La Prairie, which had been founded in 1647 and was an important settlement in New France, located just across the St. Lawrence River from Montreal. So they basically went across the river. And La Prairie was a key point along the route south to Lake Champlain and the English colonies, but which also made it a target. The town faced repeated Iroquois raids, including major attacks in 1691 and 1693. And despite these challenges, the settlers, many of them were Gagne Regiment veterans, Filles du Roi, and, as we've seen, people from early on in the colony, rebuilt and grew the community constantly. The parish of Saint François Xavier was established in 1676 during the period that Marin and Louise would have, lived there. And today, La Prairie is recognized as a National Historic Site, preserving its role in the early history of Quebec. They were going to have 6 children. Jacques would marry Marie Rêvé and have 5 children, all of whom would make it to adulthood. He then married François Denier and have 6 children with her, 5 of whom made it to adulthood. Françoise's mother, Marguerite Vaillant, is a Fille du Roi that we profiled in episode 216, and I've provided the link for you as well. Now we have Charles, who married Madeleine Clément and had 10 children, 9 of whom made it to adulthood. Madeleine's mother was also a Fille du Roi, who we profiled, Madeleine Surget, who we profiled previously, and I put the episode in the link for you. Then we have Joseph, who married Jeanne Adhémar and had 17 children, only 5 of whom left descendants. Geneviève's mother was Geneviève Sajoul, a Fille du Roi that we have not yet profiled. Gabrielle would pass away in infancy. Marie would also pass away in infancy. And Thérèse de Marie would marry François Primo and have 10 children, 8 of whom made it to adulthood. And then we find them in the 2 censuses. We have Marie is there with Louise, Marie-Thérèse, there she is. And Jacques and Charles have been born by 1666. And then in the 1667 census, we have Marie. You see how his name becomes all mixed up, Dagneau? It really is a challenge sometimes to find how they, spelt the names. And then we have Marie-Thérèse. There's no mention of Louise there, but we know that's her name. And then we have Jacques, and we have Charles. Now little Joseph is born. They have 2 beasts and 20 alpars. So about 17 to 18 acres of land. Unfortunately, Marie would pass away sometime between 1674 and 1678. He would have been about 55 years of age, and he and Louise had been married for less than 20 years. So we come to the second groom, Charles Boyer, like the actor from the 1930s. And he was born in 1631, this Charles Boyer, and he was born in a commune called Val in France. Note that you do not pronounce the S's. And his parents were Pierre Boyer and Denise Réponse. Now he is from the region of France known as Nouvelle-Aquitaine that you can see on the map. And inside of that region, up at the top, you've got Deux-Sèvres, which is the county, or département as it is. Beautiful little village there. Now, in 1925, they found remnants of prehistoric instruments, and these were dated from 1600 BC. So this place has been around for a very long time. In fact, the name Val comes probably from during the time of the Roman occupation. This church that you see before you was built in later on in the 1900s, but it was the church that, for example, Charles would have been baptized in was destroyed in the 1900, and then they rebuilt so many. So I don't have a picture of the church he would have been baptized in. So this gives you, and Val was a very unique place because of the fact that there was a lot of religious and royalty that actually came to this area. So if this is your, a part of the world that you're interested in, I think you're going to find it very, very fascinating. Now they would have been married October 29, 1678. And in the 1681 census, we find Charles, Louise, And then her children, Marie, Jean, Marguerite, they have 5 bêtes and 8 arbres, so about 5 acres of land. Now, Charles would pass away sometime between 1678 and 1703. We kind of lose track of him. They did not have any other children. And he and Louise would have been married about 20 years. Louise would live on, dying at the incredible age of 81 for that period, although on her death record it says 95. Now, remember, I always tell you that when someone of that period lives that long, there's no they just look, for them, they're 1,000 years old. And so they always kind of, guess that, oh, she must have been about 100. So that's where that 95, and it actually is written on there. And she would leave us, though, 134 descendants. Wow. Amazing work, amazing legacy. And so I'm fascinated to know who's a descendant of, other than my viewer who requested, who's a descendant of Louise and Marie. So please put that down in the comments below. So we end our story about Louise. She was a remarkable woman, living such a long life and coming to New France on the Saint-André. That's an important boat that was there. It was a big deal. And her husband, her first husband, coming as Le Grand Recrue, meant that they were really pioneers in Montreal, and then would go on to help pioneer La Prairie. This is amazing. And remember how long a life she led. That was truly amazing. So this is before any modern medication. She just kept going and had a spirit, and I could feel that spirit. So we thank her for coming to our shores, for having the courage, and for having the persistence to carry on no matter what happened. We have a lot to learn from Louise. So thank you to Louise, and we bless your memory. And I also want to say thank you to my patrons and supporters and subscribers. You all are just so amazing. Thank you for being on this journey with me. And with that being said, I'll see you on the next episode of Les Filles Mariées. Until then, au revoir.